On this week's 5-Minute Friday, 3 reasons you might want to experiment with the power of protocols this summer. Hi, I'm Trisha Friedman. On this week, we're talking about the power of protocols. Reason number 1 that you might want to experiment with the power of protocols. If we are in a hybrid model in the fall, or if we return to online learning, having new protocols are going to help refresh, reinvigorate, and inspire new lines of conversation. If you've been in a session where you've heard someone say, turn and talk, or take a moment to speak with your partner, or perhaps even inside a virtual breakout room with another team, if you're told to just discuss an article, in my experience, what I have found is sometimes the conversation is either slow to start and you lose time getting momentum running forward, or the conversation falls short. I find this is often because sometimes we're not sure, even as educators, when we're told to discuss an article or talk about our thoughts, that lack of direction is sometimes really an obstacle in terms of getting towards deeper thinking. Additionally, if you just have a limited amount of time that you want a group to be discussing or exploring an article, a resource, or a book, a protocol can really focus them in so that you're really efficient with your use of time. If you follow Eduro Learning on Instagram, you may notice that we share protocols like this one quite frequently. The soil, boil, and toil protocol is a great one to try experimenting with this summer if you're the member of a book club. So Soil asks what groundwork has already been done to prepare our cohort for the questions and thinking that this text needs of us. And text might just mean a podcast or a shorter article, not necessarily a book. Boyle asks, when we turn up the heat on the topics explored here, what debatables might bubble up? And how do you know? I really like that part of the protocol because sometimes we might avoid some of that cognitive debate or some of that tension that is going to really push the thinking in the group. So that part of the protocol says, let's just see what is here that is going to give us a better sense of where we're not aligned or where we can really sort of dig in and confront some of the different perspectives that we have. If you want to develop a thinking culture, you don't want to necessarily avoid debate. The final and third part of this protocol, Toil, asks, in order to really work with the complexity of ideas addressed in this text, who else might we want to speak with, and what questions would we ask them? That part of the protocol, in my mind, is really important because it develops that intellectual humility, and it acknowledges that we don't know everything in this group, and outside perspectives are really valuable. So, soil, boil, and toil, if you're in a book group, a podcast club, or you've just exchanged an article with a friend, perhaps you want to try out that protocol. Reason number 2 that you might want to experiment with the power of protocols is that protocols are something that can help students or teachers connect subjects with one another. Often when I've given protocols to students, I might even ask them, how would you use this as a thinking frame in a service learning activity? If it's IB students, would this be useful for an IBDP CAS reflection? I think the more protocols that we can give students, it's sort of like expanding their toolkit for reflection and thinking. Our third and final reason that we might want to experiment with protocols this summer, protocols are a wonderful way for us to be able to delegate and have a shared sense of leadership in a team. We might agree that each person is going to take on one aspect of a protocol, or one person is going to be responsible for augmenting the protocol to make sure that it's super specific for the task that we are focusing on. I think that the more communication tools we can have within our classroom, within our groups, the stronger we get in conversation with one another and the more creative we get in terms of coming together to solve problems, to ideate, or even to listen. You can think about the different roles that exist with a protocol. You might have someone simply taking down the notes. If you've taken the time and you've learned about visual note-taking, maybe someone is mapping out the thinking. Perhaps you have someone who is your timekeeper. Perhaps you have someone who is your protocol remix artist who, again, is going to dig in and think about what needs tweaked when it comes to making this protocol really work. And again, you can really think about the nature of the types of collaboration and communication that you would like. What are the roles that you need? And I think the more intentional we are with thinking about the ways that great conversations happen, students are able then to take that into their activities, into their peer groups, into all of the different needs that they have for being in communication with one another. So it's excellent modeling there. If we really believe in the power of communication, we want to be really intentional with it. Thanks for listening to this week's 5-Minute Friday. If you are really keen to dig into the power of protocols, we actually have a brand new guidebook that is full of protocols that you can take into your virtual learning meetings, into your classroom, and into the activities that you run. You can explore that guidebook at edurolearning.com/self.